True off my chest. Number 1. Diagnosed with a brain tumor. This is a pretty long one. I decided to write it all out, just so I could kind of close this chapter and move on. My first post about this was before I even told my wife, and the comments were really helpful. So if anyone is interested in the full story, here it is. Last spring, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I had been having some annoying and unusual problems with my vision, but my eye doctor couldn't find anything wrong with my eyes. I went to a second eye doctor, but he couldn't find anything wrong with my eyes either, so he ordered a CT scan of my head just in case. I wasn't really worried, and was almost positive that it was something stress-related. I'm 40 years old, and people around me were all having strange stress-related issues, so it had to be that. A couple of days after my CT scan, the eye doctor called me up and told me that there was a tumor in my pituitary gland that was causing pressure to my optic nerve. He said that I would need brain surgery to remove the tumor. I started shaking. I asked him where exactly the tumor was located and if it was accessible. He said, well, actually, it is in the very center of your head. These kinds of tumors are usually removed by an operation through the nose. I took the news quite hard. When he said in the very center of your head, I took that to mean the tumor was in the very center of my brain. He didn't know much more about it, but told me that he would send a referral to the neurosurgery ward and that I would be contacted by a brain surgeon soon. I drove home trying to plan out how I would break the news to my wife and decide if and how I would tell my 2 sons aged 9 and 11. At this point, I was 100% certain I was about to die. I was too afraid to Google anything since I just couldn't handle seeing the bad news I knew in my heart I would find. I sat on the couch as I waited for my wife to come home from work, trying my best not to let my sons see the tears coming from my eyes. When my wife got home, I was able to fool her into joining me in taking the dog for a run to get her out of the house and away from the boys. As I was about to stop the car, she asked conversationally if I had heard back from the eye doctor. I stopped the car and told her that actually I did hear back and proceeded to tell her the news. She was devastated, of course. There was a lot of other shit going on in our lives. Neither of us were prepared for this. Later that night, we sat down with the boys and told them the news also. I had debated if I should tell them, but I have such a great relationship with them, I couldn't keep something like this from them. I knew they would have wanted to know, and if it turned out for the worst, it would be better to give them time to process, rather than waking up one day with me gone. They were shocked initially, but all in all, they handled the news well. Later that night, we played board games together, and were able to laugh and have fun just like we usually did. In hindsight, I think they never really believed that anything terrible could happen. Kids are a bit like that. Optimists at heart. Over the next few days, I told other people close to me, like my parents. Every time I tried to put as positive a spin on it as I could, even though I didn't feel it myself. Every time I was alone with nothing to occupy my time, the thoughts would come tumbling down on me. I kept thinking how unfair this was to my sons, who deserved to have a normal childhood. Now I was about to royally fuck that up by dying. My cousin lost his mom when he was 11, and he never really recovered fully. Will they have to deal with that too? I started to feel like I had cancer everywhere, and the brain tumor had metastasized from somewhere else. I could feel the cancer in my abdomen. I tried to tell myself that I was probably imagining things and that it was probably just something non-serious. But I was overruled by a thought saying, that was what you thought about the vision problems, silly. No, this is serious. You are going to die. I made peace with the fact that I was dying. I hoped I would have at least 5 or 10 more years. Then I could properly prepare my boys. Just a few more years would mean so much. I started to view every day as a gift. I would revel in the small things we take for granted, like walking to work on a beautiful day. A raven cawing subtly from atop a lamppost while the breeze caressed my skin. About a week later, I heard from the brain surgeon. He told me more about the surgery, and he was actually able to convince me that my prognosis was in fact quite good. He said that he had performed many surgeries like that, and he had a 97% survival rate with his patients. Seeing as I was young and in good shape, my chances were even better than that. He did also tell me that the tumor was quite large, almost 3 cm in diameter, so that worried me a little bit. He booked a date for my operation only 3 weeks later, which I was very thankful for. I will never forget the day of my surgery. I told the nurses that I was very nervous about the surgery and to please give me some really strong anti-anxiety meds. They gave me a Sobril which did not help even a little bit. I waited in a room of people who were also on their way to surgery. Finally, a nurse called my name and asked me to follow her. For some reason, I thought they would make me lay down in a hospital bed and then roll me into the operating room. So I was quite surprised as I followed her through a couple of doors and found myself standing in front of the operating table, and about 8 people who were there for the surgery. One of them asked me to lay down on the table, but as I did, she said no the other way. The pillow is for your knees, not your head. They then asked me to say my full name and asked if I knew what type of operation I was there for. I remember being very awkward when I said I was there to have a brain tumor removed. I was unprepared for the question, but I know they ask it to make sure there isn't a mix-up where they perform a surgery on the wrong person. As the anesthesiologist was hooking me up, I was so afraid. I could feel the tears streaming from my eyes even as I was trying my best to act normally. I think my lip was shaking a little bit also. I remember her stroking my forehead and telling me everything was going to be all right and that I was in good hands. For some reason, all my fears had returned, and as everything was about to go black, I wondered what would await me on the other side. Would I wake up with a massive brain injury? Would I be handicapped? Would I never wake up? I woke up 4 hours later in the recovery room, and I was feeling great. I was so happy to be alive, and I could hardly believe that I barely felt a thing. I could even breathe through my nose, even though the surgery had been performed through the nose. My brain surgeon came in to check on me, and loopy as I was, I said to him, "Hey yee man, great job." I offered him a fist bump, and he laughed as he first awkwardly began for a handshake before transitioning to a fist. "You rock, man," I told him. He and the recovery nurse laughed it off as he headed off to his second brain surgery of the day. "What an awesome guy," I said to the nurse. "He sure is," she agreed, smiling. Not saying anything negative about the other surgeons, but he is something special. He always makes such an effort and takes such good care of his patients. Wow, I thought. A brain surgeon and a good person. What a guy. I had none of the expected negative side effects from my surgery and only needed to stay in the hospital for 5 days total. I recovered relatively quickly and was back to work only 3 weeks after my surgery. I could have taken more time off, but I actually really love my job and couldn't wait to be back. As the weeks went by, I couldn't help but feel how strange it was that this chapter was actually over. After all the fear and anxiety, it was so weird to have made it out without any ill effects. Like a beached fish ready to die, only to be picked up and tossed back into the water. Life just resumed normally as if nothing happened. It's now been a year since I first started noticing the problems with my vision that started all this. I still have some lingering issues with my vision, but after all that has happened, I don't really care. It's just a little annoying. It doesn't preclude me from working or doing other things. I will take it. In some ways, I feel now like I was a bit of a drama queen about all this. I am in a Reddit thread for people with brain tumors. There I sometimes see stories from people who really did get handed a death sentence. That really puts things into perspective. A pituitary gland tumor is probably the easiest type of brain tumor to remove. It can barely be called a brain tumor since it is in the pituitary gland that is attached to the underside of the brain but not part of the brain itself. Sometimes I think about what if I met someone who got a real brain tumor. Would they judge me for having it easy? Probably not, I guess. In any case, looking back, 2024 was still sort of a rough year. Even with the enormous relief after the surgery and the incredible eventual outcome, I've realized I'm still recovering from everything mentally. There has been some extra strain on my family, just from all the added stress on top of everything else. But I can feel it's getting better. Sometimes I remember moments from the time before I had the surgery, moments when I hoped I would get at least 5-10 more years to live. And especially the moment when I was laying on the operating table with tears running from my eyes as the anesthesiologist caressed my forehead, telling me softly that everything would be all right. I think 2025 is going to be a good year. I think everything is going to be all right. True off my chest, number 2. If I didn't have an abortion, I'd have a 5-year-old. I feel sad about it. I was 21, and I was in a situationship. I was on the pill, and he always used a condom. Because I was on the pill, I wasn't too worried when I saw it had split, because we'd both been tested. A month or so later, I realized I was 3 weeks late for my period. So I did a test, and I was pregnant. Immediately, I booked an abortion. The whole thing was horrific and violating. Since then, I've been able to complete my studies, get a good job, and I've managed to do this because I don't have a baby. And yet, every year around this time, I feel sad. Not because I regret it, I don't. But because I'm frustrated that despite all precautions I became pregnant, and I'm sad that there are people out there in the world who would wish for me to suffer a pregnancy and motherhood against my will. True off my chest, number 3. Child-free and pregnant after husband lied about vasectomy. I'm 36 years old, almost 37. My husband is 38. We've been married for 10 years. We have no kids. We are child-free by choice. I found out I was pregnant 1 week before Christmas. We have not always been 100% child-free. I think when we first got together, we figured we would have kids one day. That day never came. We never got to the point of feeling ready and/or wanting to intentionally plan to have a baby. We could never pull the trigger on it. A part of me wants kids, but when I think of the reality of what that means, I can't rationalize doing it. It's a huge responsibility to bring a human into the world. You really have to dedicate your life to this new person. And even then, sometimes things still go wrong. I have many reasons for deciding that having children wasn't a good idea. All of the things that could go wrong, how difficult it is, the huge responsibility of it all, and some moral reasons, like just not feeling right about bringing more humans into the world. I always sort of had in my head that I'd have to decide by the time I was 35. At one point it felt like 35 was so far away, but then it came, and we had to be honest with ourselves. If after 10 years of marriage we still felt that conflicted about it, and if we weren't totally enthusiastic about the idea, then we should probably not have kids. It'd be a huge change for us, and we were used to the way things were. My husband had a vasectomy a year ago. It was a relief to finally have made a decision and have a permanent solution. Yes, vasectomies can be reversed, but that wasn't an option we were even considering. He had the vasectomy. He didn't lie about that part. He was supposed to go back to check that the vasectomy was successful. He lied about that part. He never went back to get it checked. He thought that was unnecessary, and the chances of it not being successful were slim. Going to the doctor for one quick appointment was a waste of time for him. He told me he went though, and that everything was good. So, we've been having sex without any kind of birth control involved since then. Before Christmas, I started to feel nauseous and lightheaded at times. I thought I was either stressed out holiday stuff. I tend to stress myself out and overdo it at the holidays, or that I was catching one of the bugs going around. A co-worker and her family had been down with a stomach bug for several days, so I thought I was coming down with that maybe. Eventually, I realized that I had missed my period for 2 months. I don't track my period these days at all. I'd been really busy at work and time since September has just zoomed by. As soon as I realized I had missed my period for 2 months, I ran to the store and bought a few pregnancy tests. When I took the first one, it came back positive within seconds. There was no waiting around for the results. I took all of the tests I bought, and they were all positive. I haven't been to the doctor yet. I can't get in until a little later this month. By my calculations, I'm 11 weeks pregnant. My emotions are over the place. I felt so much relief finally making the decision that we weren't going to have kids. Now I feel so conflicted. I also feel terrified. One of the reasons I decided against kids was because I have a ton of health anxiety. And I was very afraid of pregnancy and childbirth because of all the things that can go wrong. So I've been struggling with terrible anxiety over my health since finding out. To add another layer, there's the whole lying thing. I have this new moral dilemma about whether or not I want to have a child with somebody who would lie to me about having his vasectomy checked. Do I want that person as my child's father? I know that might sound extreme, and maybe it is. He thinks I'm overreacting. Yes, I know there is a margin of error for every vasectomy, even those that are verified to have been successful, but I don't think that justifies what he did. I feel like my whole life has been turned upside down, and he really doesn't seem to be nearly as thrown for a loop as I am. I guess I might be upset about that. I feel like my world is being rocked right now, and he's just like, it won't be so bad. Maybe this is meant to be. He also says that whatever I want to do, he'll support me, and he really doesn't care either way. That's infuriating to me. He sees it as him respecting that it's my body, my choice. Yet when I tell you I want to hear your real opinion, since having a child will affect your life forever. 2, I genuinely want to hear your real opinion. I feel it's unfair to tell me it's up to me, and you really don't care either way. Of course, the pregnancy hormones probably aren't helping me at all. True off my chest, number 4. To my parents. This has been a long time coming, and I'm not looking for advice or anything. This just needs to come out. I broke contact with my parents and sister 1 year ago Tuesday. They never got a reason from me because I don't feel they deserve it. I was the younger sibling of the 2 of us, and yet somehow ended up a middle child. When I was 8 years old, my mum started an in-home daycare, looking after 5 small kids, aged 1 to 3. Everything that may have been mine prior to that then became daycare toys, and the attention that a child needs at that stage in life was gone, directed entirely at 5 small humans who were in no way related to us. But I still had my sister. Well, that lasted until I was 12, when she moved out with her boyfriend. Mom still had the daycare, Dad worked 12-hour days and drank as soon as he got home. Then the daycare kids aged out of the house and were promptly replaced by 2 small dogs that both of my parents absolutely fawned over. They were their new sons, direct quote. Meanwhile, 2 failed suicide attempts at 14 and 16 went completely unacknowledged because, and I quote, adversity builds character. You're not depressed, you're a kid. Senior year of high school, I was kicked out just after my 17th birthday because I wouldn't pay rent. I worked 2 days a week at a minimum wage job. Thank goodness for my school's counseling team who got me set up with a place to stay. Fast forward through 5 years of alcoholism and general self-destruction. I met my wife at 22. She was an absolute beacon of positivity in my bleak-ass world, and her family welcomed me with open arms. The first time I met them was on a 2-week family vacation they brought me along on, which was something that never happened with my bio family. Any vacation was always just an excuse for my parents to drink with their friends and extended family, while I, the older cousin, was left to tend to the 6 to 10 other kids that were around. Through the years of being around my in-laws and spending very little time interacting with the spawn points, I learned what it meant to be a close family, instead of what I had been told was a close family. My wife and I actually live in the same building as her folks now, by choice. Her dad is one of my best friends in the world. Her mom is my emotional support system, and her sisters are closer to me than my own ever was, even when I relied on her for support at home. About 8 years ago, my wife and I moved about 1,000 miles from where I grew up for better work opportunities and to start to build a life together. My spawn points came to visit one time in the 7 years before I cut them off. This, of course, was my fault because I didn't go visit more even though they are retired and take multiple international vacations a year. Zip ahead to today. As it's been a year since the great severing, I felt that I should reflect on the last year and how I feel now. For the first while after I cut contact, I felt bad. Not about actually cutting communication, but about the fact that I didn't feel bad for cutting contact. Every phone call home prior to the cut was an anxiety attack waiting to happen. Nothing was ever good enough. About 3 to 4 months in, I found myself thinking about them less and less, and my general mods on a daily basis was improving. So much so that my wife and my chosen family were taking notice. My health even improved, and I gained 10 pounds that I've actually been able to keep on. I'm really skinny, so this was a huge deal for me. 8 months in, I came to a realization. I don't miss them. At all. As a matter of fact, I feel virtually nothing towards them anymore. Not even the animosity I grew into having over the years since childhood. No love, no hate, just ambiguity. I've been seeing a therapist since I made my decision to do this, and that has really helped process all these emotions and made me realize that I'm entitled to be happy and comfortable. So all that said, B&T, I don't forgive you. You don't deserve it. You don't get to know how well I'm doing in life, or how happy and truly at peace I am now. True off my chest number 5. Did I escape being murdered, or am I overthinking it? So this happened in June 2023, so it's not recent, but I've been thinking about it, and wanted another opinion. I 26 at the time had just had my second baby with my husband. I was 2 weeks postpartum. I found this cool kids Lego table on Facebook Marketplace and decided I wanted to go pick it up because our eldest child loves Legos. The table was lightweight and pretty easy to carry. My husband and I share locations because I like to thrift and buy things at meetups, and most of the time I go alone. My husband stays home with our newborn and is watching my location as I drive about 25 miles to the pickup location. The location is a very nice house in a nice community. There's a man outside waiting on the front porch for me. He doesn't look scary. He's probably in his 30s, he's fit, he's attractive, he doesn't immediately scream scary. Usually when I pick things up, the item is in an open garage or on the front porch, or at most in the entryway of the house. But not this time. I get out of my car and open my trunk, and the man smiles at me and asks me if I want to come inside and look at it first. I initially want to say no, but I am really bad at saying no to people, so I nod and say yes. He steps aside and gestures for me to enter the house. It feels weird, but I do it because I'm really bad at saying no. I step inside, and he steps in behind me and closes the front door shut. The first things I notice is that the lights in the house are all off. There is no furniture anywhere. The Lego table is nowhere in sight. And to top it off, the walls, the floors, the ceilings, the counters are all covered in tarp. He doesn't mention it though, he just gestures for me to move ahead. I feel weird because it's a large house, and I don't immediately know where I'm going. I get to the living room and still no Lego table, and he doesn't say anything about the tarp. There's no paint or paint smell, so I'm feeling very uncomfortable. He moves around me and gestures for me to follow him through a kitchen to a hallway leading into the back of the house. At this point I felt terrified but didn't want to show it because, for some reason, I feared that if I voiced being uncomfortable or ran, that it would trigger him to act impulsively, if he had bad intentions. So I smile, and as we walk I start mentioning my husband, and how my husband is so careful with me, and how my husband tracks my location and works nights and is expecting me home soon. He didn't ask for this information, but I just say it in a casual conversation way. Then I go on to say I just had a baby 2 weeks ago and I breastfeed, so I need to make it home for the next feeding. At this point he stops and looks at me and says, "You just had a baby?" I tell him yes, and that we've been so excited about it, trying to keep it calm and friendly. He doesn't respond to it. He doesn't say congratulations. He doesn't explain the tarp or the lights or why he closed the front door, or why he didn't have the Lego table closer to the front door or outside. He just leads me to this back room where the Lego table is. The Lego table is the only piece of furniture in this house, besides the mass amounts of tarp. I smile excitedly and say that my older son is going to be so excited and that I'll take it. At this point, I'm so weirded out that I don't even want or care for the table, I just want out of the house. I hold out the $20, he takes it and lets me carry the table out, but doesn't say anything to me. It just feels off. I feel like he was planning to murder me, but decided not to because I was a too high-risk target. Or maybe I'm overthinking it. It was very weird. I don't understand why he kept the Lego table in a room at the back of the house. Why he didn't have it with him while he waiting for me on the front porch. Why he invited me inside and shut the door behind us. It was a sunny day, and there was nothing in the house anyways. What do you think? True off my chest number 6. I'm doing it. I'm leaving my wife. The woman who has beat me when she's drunk, who isolated me from my friends and family, who has had control of my finances for years. I finally did it. I got the courage to leave. She didn't allow me to eat today as punishment for going out with old friends for New Year's. She purchased all the groceries, so they were hers, not mine. I went to the gas station and picked up a sandwich, and when I returned, all hell broke loose. She screamed at me and told me to leave the house. I didn't ask if she meant permanently or until she cooled off. Her anger stemmed from her financial control over me. She was implying I was hiding money from her. I just packed a bag while she yelled at me and walked away. Called my mother and am now on her couch. It's been a few hours since this all happened, and I'm finally calmed down. I was shaking with fear when I was leaving all the way until an hour after I got here. My mom heated me up lasagna, and I was too shaken up to even eat. But I'm out. I have sent multiple messages to friends, and it turns out that most of them knew it wasn't my fault that I became distant. Everyone has been offering to help me when it comes time to get my things from our house. I have friends of friends who are men. My wife and I are both women who are offering to be there for my protection. I haven't been able to cry yet. I think I'm still in shock. Everything just happened so quickly. Like I just snapped back into reality and packed a bag and left. I finally told my mother what life has been like. I knew it was bad, but seeing my mom cry for me really hit me how bad it actually was. I just can't believe I'm out. I can sleep tonight without worry of my wife's mood. That's it. That's all I want to say. This is obviously a throwaway because she knows my personal Reddit, and I'm just not ready to be so public. If you read this far, thank you. It's a crazy start to the new year, and I'm terrified about what's next. I hope in 6 months I can look back on today and be grateful that I made that decision. True off my chest number 7. My girlfriend doesn't like that. I'm knowledgeable about women things. I 32M have been dating my girlfriend 28F for about 6 months. And she is uncomfortable with the fact that I am knowledgeable and comfortable talking about women things. I have been in long-term relationships for most of my adult life. I grew up with sisters and female cousins that I'm close to, and I was pre-med before switching to engineering. All that to say, I'm comfortable discussing periods, birth control and the like. I'm familiar with female anatomy. And I don't have a problem with buying or carrying period products, lingerie, makeup, perfume, etc. She, on the other hand, grew up in a fairly small, rural and conservative town. She had sisters, but her dad and other male members of her family apparently would make jokes, gagging noises, or otherwise shame them for talking about having their period. I have period products in my bathroom for anyone that visits that needs them, and that weirded her out, asking who left them there. I tried to have a conversation about what her symptoms usually are, and what she needs when she is having bad symptoms, so I can be as helpful as possible during that time. And she refused to have that conversation. One time she had mentioned being out of pads, and I offered to get some, and she seemed upset that I offered. When we dress up to go out on nicer dates, I try to tell her what I'm wearing, or ask what she's wearing, so we can color coordinate if she is into that. After a few times of telling she asked why, and I explained that I thought it would be cute to match. She basically asked if one of my exes liked to match and said she doesn't care enough to do that all the time. I have a base level knowledge about nails manicures. I've gone a few times. Usually date women who get their nails done and pay attention to what they say they get, and have done some Googling for ideas to help them fit a certain style. She did the classic "what should I get" test, and all I said was that I like the way the rounded or almond tips look over the others, and I think an earth tone would look good for fall. Who taught you about nails? She was legit upset. This all came to a head when, after she told me that she wanted me to go with her to pick out new underwear to wear for you, I took the initiative to just go and surprise her with several pair from Victoria's Secret. She usually wears thongs day to day, but she likes to sleep in boy shorts or hipsters, so I grabbed a few of each. She was absolutely flabbergasted that I, a lone man, went into a store for women, found the underwear section, searched through them to find the ones I was looking for, carried them to the front, and walked back through the mall and to my car with a bright pink bag. She asked if I had help from someone that worked there, if I had someone go with me, and then how many times I had gone there before. With other women to be so familiar and comfortable doing it on my own. She has expressed in some ways some form of gratitude that I am not as ignorant clueless as the stereotypical guy about these things. But in the moment she's upset, because it's a reminder that I've dated other women before her. True off my chest number 8. Polar bear plunge. On January 1st, 2025, my husband and I decided to do a Dino dive polar bear plunge. Neither of us had ever done anything like this before, and we looked at it as a way to wash away the old and embrace a new year. Well, that was the worst thing I have ever done. The second I hit the water, I got the worst migraine I have ever had in my 44 years of life on this earth. I am not unhealthy, but I do have some medical conditions. I have hypothyroidism genetics from my dad's side, and fibromyalgia, my mother had it also. So I am used to pain and discomfort. I have also dealt with migraines since my early 20s due to a lot of stress, but in the last about 10 to 12 years, I only get them about 4 to 6 times a year as opposed to about once to twice a month. Other than that, I am pretty healthy. I hike every weekend and walk about 10,000 a day. I teach 7th grade. When I say it is the worst pain I have ever experienced, I mean it. Last year, I had a polyp in my uterus that caused labor pains when it was trying to come out. And that wasn't even that bad compared to this, and that was not pleasant. So after I got out of the water, my head beat me down. It took me 10 minutes to change clothes and another 20 minutes to get to my car. My husband drove us home, and I had to have him pull over 3 different times to vomit. That was not fun, especially since there was nothing in my stomach after the first time, so the taste was worse. After an hour, we make it. I take a bath, load up on migraine meds, and sleep. By the time I get up, I think the worst is over. Oh, I was so wrong. We go to bed at about 7 p.m. Husband has to be at work at 5 a.m. At 9 p.m., I woke up and felt some pain. I tried to eat something because usually that helps. At 10, my pain was so bad that I crawled to the bathroom and into the tub, where I tried to relieve the pain, but it was too late, and I vomited again. Not pretty. My husband wanted to be up with me, but I wouldn't let him because he had to work, and I didn't, so I made him go back to bed. Finally, around midnight, I get to sleep. The next day, January 2, I was hoping that the pain would be done. But yeah, not so much. I didn't vomit, but it still was a bad day. I had to make sure with the doctor that I could take more medication. They allowed it. By the time we went to bed, the pain was bearable, and this morning, on day 3 of the new year, I fell almost 100%. Almost. Do I regret doing the plunge? Heck no. It was an experience that I am glad I did. Would I do it again? No, because that hurt worse than anything I could ever imagine. So why am I sharing? If you decide to be adventurous and try it, please do some cold therapy. There is a way to train your body and head to resist cold water and not experience what I did. If I had known this could happen, I would have done the therapy. I didn't look it up until yesterday. It is common for people to experience different things, from migraines to heart attacks, etc. Please research before trying something crazy. I now know and will do my best to learn from my mistakes. Happy 2025, my friends. True off my chest number 9. I think I'm going to die, but I don't want to. I think the doctors have it wrong. My gallbladder is completely impacted with stones. I'm not overweight and have always had a healthy diet. I have a gallbladder attack weekly. I'm having one right now. The pain is so debilitating that my last one caused hallucinations. I'm scared because I have a baby, and during my hallucinations, I really thought it was real. I was going to inject boiling water into my stomach with a needle to stop the pain. I made this plan up during my hallucinations. I was hallucinating that I was planning this with my partner until he confirmed that convo never took place. He was in bed sleeping. I imagined talking to my son. Imagined police outside my door looking for me. I have an 8-month-old too, and don't feel like it's safe to be around her. I've gone yellow before. Doctors tell me it's because of eating fat, but since finding out I'm on a really low-fat, no-fat diet and I'm still getting them. I've woken up this morning feeling off, went downstairs to make the children breakfast, and boom, the pain started. Doctor says I'm on a list that's 2 years away. I have been the squeaky wheel, but nothing is happening. I can't afford private healthcare. I'm currently selling anything I can to put towards it, but realistically, it's Envia going to cover it. Just to clarify, I'm not asking for any help on this post. I just need to tell someone. My GP tells me I really need this out as it's causing havoc, but what can I do? What do they expect me to do? I don't have any family or support to talk to. The worst part of this month is that I had a scan to check my insides out. When I have an attack, I'm really ill for days and my liver levels are insane. But then it starts to settle over a couple of days until they reach normal levels. The week of my scan, I had no problems. The day after the scan, I had an horrendous attack. I just can't believe my luck. True off my chest number 10. Chilling with a dog was my best experience in 2024. I went to a New Year's Eve party at a friend's house. He has a dog that's really scared of the fireworks, but he wasn't allowed to come in, so he had to stay outside on the balcony. I already hung out with him for an hour alone because I felt bad since he was outside and scared. 15 minutes before the countdown, I came inside and wanted to ask the other people if they would like to hang out with us, since the next half hour will be the worst for him. But they were making themselves ready to go out to use their own firework that they've got. So I just asked if they could please go far away, BC of the dog, and went on the balcony on my own. I put on my headphones, light up a joint, and sit beside the dog to calm him. The last 10 minutes of 2024 was really my coolest moment of the year. It just felt like I was in the perfect place in life. Reflecting back on it, I think it was a really therapeutic moment for me. 2024 was a shitty year for me. I like helping out wherever I can, BC, it just feels good. But that year, people used me so much for it. Used me to trauma dump because I always listen whenever I can. Pretended to be dumb. So I'd help, screamed at me for helping after asking for it. 2 relationships went downhill, with their reasoning being that I'm too good for them. There's so much other stuff, and it just felt like all the helping I did backlashed at me. But in that moment, I was truly able to help the dog without any negative backlashes. Since it was the last 10 minutes of 2024, it feels so special as well. I don't know what to do with this experience because I would love to be that type of person for other people without getting negatively impacted by it. I'm definitely getting myself pets when I'll move out. Otherwise then that I'll enjoy having this memory until I know how to recreate it. True off my chest number 11. A dude was asked to be a bridesmaid at my friend's wedding. Gonna call my friend Christy. I have known Christy for almost a decade, since our freshman year of college. We lived in the same dorm but different floors and started hanging out since I would make grilled cheese sandwiches in the building's communal kitchen. I appreciate her friendship a lot since she helped me get out of my shell. I was a very quiet, awkward dude and live a little. She was the person who taught me to smoke weed out of a hollowed-out apple. I helped her pass our Intro to Environmental Sciences course. Even after we finished school, we always hung out and maintained the friendship. Christy started dating a really nice guy 2 years ago, and over Christmas, he proposed. She just called me a few hours ago to ask if I would be one of her bridesmaids. I was so surprised she asked me, but I said yes. She has like 4 sisters and lots of other friends, so it means a lot to me that she'd ask me. I did jokingly tell her I would under no circumstances wear a dress. Hell of nice way to start the year.